What's going on, everybody? It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office with a detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for your Friday night into early Saturday morning, depending on where you're watching this from. If it's on the East Coast, it is currently Saturday morning over there. We're keeping an eye on two tropical systems for tonight, and especially Humberto. Really impressive and really beating expectations, except on my behalf. I expected this to really intensify tonight, and that has been the case. We have a very intense hurricane out there, and yet again, fortunately, this is going to be missing any land areas, and it is going out to sea. More on that in a little bit. We're keeping an eye on PTC Nine here. Really disorganized. I mean, one could even argue it even really looks like a PTC at all because of how entangled it is within this mess. We have a trough of low pressure coming out into the deep south, into the southeast, and this system is going to be pretty much going off to the north. But there have been some notable changes in the model guidance tonight that you need to definitely be aware of. So we're going to get into all of that here in just a second. Now, before I do, if you haven't been here before and you do find these tropical weather outlook and discussions very helpful, detailed, and informative, as well as life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon to get daily tropical weather updates, as well as more live streaming coverage like you're seeing tonight. And also, please hit the like button if you haven't already, and please also share this with your family and friends on social media. It really helps out very much. All right, so again, we're keeping an eye on Humberto. There's PTC 9, and I believe that is what is left there with that is what is left with our G-Storm. Man, I can't even speak tonight. A lot going on today, so that's what we have there. And let's take a closer look here. When I think of it, it will pop into my brain. Just needs to pop up first. So here is Humberto right now, and this thing is pretty darn impressive. Very intense hurricane here with winds that are 145 miles an hour. You can clearly see that thick donut here with very cold cloud tops of negative 60 to negative 70 degrees Celsius, which is very cold within a well-defined eye. The eye did briefly get obscured here. You can kind of see it right about in there. Thought that an eye wall replacement cycle would be beginning. It probably is in the early stages of happening. I'll show you some evidence that with that in just a second. But we can see also a little bit more asymmetry to this, as you can see with the cloud pattern, a indication that there might be a little bit of vertical wind shear still over the system coming in out of the westerly direction, but not a whole lot to disrupt the inner core structure here. And in fact, we have a very big amount of deep convection that has exploded here on the western and southern sides of the system, indicating to us that Humberto is fighting hard for its life when it comes to any vertical wind shear and some dry air that might be trying to cause a little bit of minute disruptions. On the other hand, here's a look at the infrared satellite imagery on PTC 9, and it does look a little bit more better organized when it comes to the low-level circulation. We actually do have northerly flow, if I can get my drawing arrow here. So here's northerly flow here. We do have a little bit of southwesterly flow here, winds quickly shifting in out of the easterly direction here. So it does appear we do have a low-level circulation trying to develop right down here, just to the east of the main island here of the Turks and Caicos. All right, so just to the northeast of the tip here of Cuba is where we have that area of low pressure that is developing. And there's been some surprising uptrends with our modeling tonight on this system, which may explain that there's maybe a little bit more divergence, a little bit more upper level support when this gets into the northern Bahamas, as well as the southwestern or the rest of the southwestern Atlantic. But there's some good news to all of this. So the bad news is it could get a little stronger than what we first thought, but the good news is might not make landfall at all, and that would really really be good because we've been doing good so far this season. Really, we only had Chantel and Andrea making landfall. All the others have avoided landfall. I don't think Gabrielle, that's the word that I was looking for, the name, I don't think it made landfall. It moved over the Azores, but I don't believe it made an exact landfall anywhere on those islands. So keeping us with this streak of no landfalls other than Andrea at the very early part of the hurricane season and Chantel, which was also relatively early. So still clean slate on the piece of paper here, and we will see if that will continue. So here's a look at potential tropical cyclone 9. Right now, it is not a tropical depression or a tropical storm. This is a PTC, which means this is a potential tropical cyclone trying to form because, again, we don't have a close circulation, but we do have a broad area of low pressure. And then there are tropical storm warnings out for the southeastern Turks and Caicos Islands here of the Bahamas, and then the northern Bahamas under a tropical storm watch because of tropical storm-like conditions are a possibility. And the reason why that's a possibility is, wait until I show you the models. Excuse me. And then this becomes a hurricane. I have my doubts on that. I really do. And I'll show you why here in a little bit. And that's why I wanted to do this detailed discussion tonight on this system, because of the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty. And it does look like now, though, this should stay offshore. That's what most of the model guidance is starting to suggest. So really quickly, I did want to show you all really quickly on Hurricane Humberto. For those that are curious, yes, it should miss Bermuda yet again. These areas, this whole area has been getting really lucky with no strikes yet. And these systems going out in this general direction, either too far to the east or just down the middle between Bermuda and the eastern seaboard. Okay. But either way you put this, Humberto is likely to become a category 5 if an eyewall replacement cycle does not happen in the next 24 hours. And that would be the second category 5 hurricane and the third major hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season. Believe it or not. So it has been a relatively busy hurricane season in terms of ace points, but really not busy in terms of the number of named storms, since this would be our 9th named storm, 8th named storm on Humberto, and then our 9th named storm on Imelda once it does actually, or Imeldi, something like that. Can't even say it right. Imeldi or Imelda, something like that. So on the GFS model, let's move this forward, and you can see there is our system right there on the GFS model. Again, pressures that are down to about 940 to 950 millibars, so a fairly intense hurricane as this rounds the western periphery of the subtropical ridge. And here is our next system here, approaching the west coast of Florida, or east coast of Florida. That is like Daytona Beach, Fort Myers over there, getting some strong winds out of this. And as we go a little closer here, here's the tricky part of the forecast. So the GFS model now has this stalling out a little earlier and moving this way, following out with Humberto, because it does appear that Humberto is a little bit further to the west than what previously thought. And fortunately, in this sense, PTC 9 is a little bit further to the east than what we originally thought. So these, in theory, are a little bit closer to each other now, where they can interact with each other a little bit more effectively. And just a little makes a big difference here. And we can see how that has had on our models today. If we look at our previous model runs over the last couple of days, you can see that there has been some notable trends here on the GFS model. You can see in yesterday morning's 12Z run, we had the system all the way up here into southeastern Tennessee, into the Carolinas, into northern Georgia. But if we go to the recent model runs, you can see how this has slowly shifted over time and now has shifted offshore. This does not mean that this is going to be the trend going forward. This could still wobble around, but over the last 4 or 5 model runs, this has trended further south and further offshore. And this would be a good thing because most of the heavy rainfall would be thankfully offshore, although maybe a tight gradient of heavy rainfall would brush the coastline of the Carolinas. In my opinion, that's what I believe is going to happen. I don't think this is going to make landfall, and that is fortunate. We can go this whole season yet to see another landfall. And this would be one of those seasons that has only had 2 landfalls, which again, we could all be blessed and praiseful about that. I mean, that means lesser impacts. That means less tax dollars being used for infrastructure repair, for flood repairs. So we gotta hope for the best here that this does not make its way onshore, because this would certainly be devastating if it actually does. But on the GFS, it goes pretty much like this. It literally hits a spot and it just says, oh, there's a wall there. And it's because there is actually a cold front right in here. You can see the boundary that is located. So you got this cold front trying to surge southward. And as this system comes up and hits that cold front, it's pretty much going to be deflected. And you can see that here on the GFS, literally hitting that wall and being deflected off towards the east, which is really good news in this sense. But now the bad news about that is, where is it going to go? Is it going to hit Bermuda? Let's take a look. So there is a look at the central Atlantic, and it looks like this would also pass just to the south of pretty much where Bermuda is. I know it's hard to see Bermuda, but right there is Bermuda. There's your tropical system. And I'll tell you, when you compare these two systems, they're going to cross one. Humberto's going to cross or move through first, and then look at. So we're going to have like a big old X here of lots of upper ocean heat content upwelling. Very impressive stuff. And then going on beyond that, we will see what ends up happening. But this could be a huge ace producer if this kind of hangs around for a while, which I don't think is going to. We've been seeing a lot of variability in our models, so I'm not trusting one model here. But it is something to really point out here in this video. And as far as any development or any future development through the next 300 hours, it does not look likely over the Gulf right now. I don't see anything alarming popping up on the radar for any tropical development in the Gulf right now. So it's these two systems that we will have to contend with for a little while longer, and then those will be out of here. Now, looking at the Canadian model, the Canadian model brings us a little closer, and it is a little bit further to the north, though, but it's been very consistent in this general area that the system's going to be here before it moves offshore or moves away from the Carolina coast. Again, sparing anybody the best here, but there would be some strong winds and more than likely some heavier rainfall, again, brushing against the coast here of the Carolinas. But how much rain falls will depend on how close the system actually gets. And then it tries to make a little sneaky turn to the north there. Now, what about the icon model? I wanted to show you all this before we look at the European model. Actually, the Euro is not even rendering yet. So as we look at the icon here, same thing. Look at this, stalls a lot earlier, actually. And this has been consistent also. The icon model thinks that it is going to stall here before it makes a turn. Actually, might head southeast before it moves back over the Bahamas briefly before moving out into the middle of the Atlantic. All right, so again, really sparing the Carolina coast. This would be a really good situation for Florida, for any of the Carolina coast, and Georgia. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of warm water here. There's a lot of moisture to work with, but there is fortunately a lot of vertical wind shear. And when we actually look at the vertical wind shear here, you're going to literally see that. And I know the weather community has told me that, dude, there's going to be a lot of upper level divergence. I get that. Yes. We can see surprising development with this, but it is going to be battled with a lot of dry air that is going to entrain into the system. This is what people are not seeing, okay? I have my own opinion on my forecast, but other people are not seeing this. And I'm trying to wake up those people that are not seeing what I'm seeing here. So what we have here is, let's actually go to college due page. Let's look at that really quickly. Let's go to regional. Let's go to the golf here, because this is very important. This is really critical information. So this is the low-level water vapor imagery. It kind of works in the upper levels as well. So any blue colors here, not as bright yellow, indicates more moisture is in the atmosphere. That's what satellite thinks. Look at all this orange and red here over the northern Gulf. This is really, really dry, deep layer air, not just at the lower parts of the atmosphere, but also in the upper levels. And when we look at the upper level water vapor imagery, you can see this tongue patch of really dry air in the upper troposphere. Why is that important? Because that is going this way. All right, that patch of dry air is actually going to get in the way of what goes on with our system down here. And it might look like, oh, it's in a very good environment, David. There's a lot of moisture. Yeah, there's a lot of moisture right now, but we all know the atmosphere is constantly evolving. It's not stratospheric. It's not stagnatory. It's always changing every minute. The pattern changes, and so that is why we watch these things. All right, and things have evolved for the better. This dry patch of air is going to get here in time before our system gets over here. And so what that's going to equate to with the vertical wind shear is we're actually going to have some disruptions with the formative stage of the system. So let's go back to tropical tidbits. And so that's this product that we're actually looking at. This is the deep layer moisture plot. A lot of YouTubers, I don't pay attention to other YouTubers. Maybe they use this plot a lot, but I use it. I try to use it in all of my tropical videos because this is important, because this is looking at the 700 millibar layer all the way up to the 300 millibar layer. So this is an average look at the water vapor in the mid to upper parts of the atmosphere. Okay. So all this brown here is dry air. That's what we looked at, right? It all makes sense. It really does. This up here matches with this. See? Now you understand with what we're looking at. So putting this into motion, where does that dry air? And by the way, here is PTC 9. Look at that nice, good moisture pocket. And that is what's surprising people. Oh, it's in a deep moisture pocket. It's going to rapidly intensify, David. There's upper level divergence on this. I get that. I get that. I know my stuff. I know what upper level divergence does. It lowers your surface pressures in the lower parts of the atmosphere. And at the surface, you get TCG. I'm not saying this is not going to become a tropical storm or what. I do see this becoming a tropical storm, but not just a hurricane. All right. So there's a difference there. I do see this becoming a tropical storm of 50 to 55, maybe close to 60 miles an hour, but I don't see this becoming a hurricane. And there are reasons behind that. Okay. I may be wrong. I may be right. I can't get everything right all the time. Things are complicated in the weather department sometimes with models. But we do have dry air here, and we have dry air here, and a little slug of moisture. So what ends up happening to that patch of moisture? Well, let's see what happens here. Let's get a little closer, shall we? So there comes the dry air, and look what ends up happening. Some of that drier air gets in the way of things. All right. This particular model has less vertical wind shear on it, which I'm a little on edge about it, because the last model had a lot more vertical wind shear on it. And this is trending further south. So unless something really miraculously changes, I don't see this really popping off very much. All right. So you got to understand how vertical wind shear looks. Okay. Yes, you got upper level divergence here. You can clearly see that nice, good poleward exhaust here. But you also have this patch of southwesterly and westerly upper level winds imparting vertical wind shear on our system. Remember, our system's going to stall out here. See how that system stalls? But the upper level winds are trying to yank the system northward. But our steering flow in the lower parts is trying to yank the system further to the east. So that imparts vertical wind shear over the system, okay? So when we look at this, you can see that, yes, an inner core does try to form, but you know how the GFS can play dumb sometimes on this. And this is a distinct possibility, especially if our trends continue this way, then the vertical wind shear may not be as strong as what I initially thought, but there is a lot of dry air on the southern side of this. There is going to be a lot of dry air to contend with the system. It's kind of one of those situations that half of it looks really wet to the north where we have a lot of rain, lots of thunderstorms, but then the south side looks, wow, it doesn't look all that impressive. It looks really dry, you know. The dirty side of the system is the southern side. And that's what we'll probably be dealing with the system. Really anemic, really half saying maybe a hurricane, if an inner core can be well established briefly, might get that up to 75 miles an hour, but only briefly. But most of me says there's going to be enough vertical wind shear and dry air being pumped in on the backside of this, and this would lead to the disruption of a inner core structure. Without an inner core structure, you cannot get a strengthening system. So that's what ends up being the case here. And look at it. See this? This is very much tilted. You can see most of the mid-level rotation here on this side of the image way over here, and your low-level rotation is here. So this is very much tilted with height. Actually, that looks very anemic by all means with that vertical wind shear coming in. That vertical wind shear of over 40 or 50 knots. That's pretty strong on a system. So strong that it really, really loses its cool. Like, look at that. It really does. Lots of dry air on the system. So be very important. That's going to, and if it does survive, like what this model shows, it really tries to have it intensifying, which is why I think we're going to have to contend with this for a while. It's not going to be, oh, it's going to go east and it's not going to bother anybody. This can do some crazy stuff, but we'll just have to wait and see what all ends up happening. But right now, for the foreseeable future, we have two systems to really watch at the moment. Let's actually look at the vertical wind shear. It's not on this plot. Let's go to here. Let's go to vertical wind shear. And so right now, what people don't realize is vertical wind shear. Well, most people realize by now that the vertical wind shear is light. Okay, not disagreeing with you on that. We have vertical wind shear of about 10 to 15, maybe close to 18 or 19 knots. By the way, thank you, Sandfon MC, for the $2 donation. I do appreciate it. If you guys want to donate tonight, makes me happy. It really does. Because I'm doing something pretty special for the YouTube channel coming for next year. So can't wait to show you all that eventually. But back to the tropics here. So vertical wind shear is light over the system, so not a problem with that. That's why people are speculating that this is going to rapidly intensify. But watch what ends up happening. Watch what happens. Yep, what is that? You might ask, what is that? That is vertical wind shear, my friends. That is vertical wind shear, and systems don't like vertical wind shear. And in fact, the vertical wind shear here is definitely above average. So this is not an ideal area for this system to be in for significant intensification. So we end up seeing a lot of vertical wind shear on this system, really increasing from here on out, essentially. So in about 24 hours, vertical wind shear picks up to about 20 to 25 knots. And then once it gets to the north of the Bahamas, probably about 25 to 35 knots, which is enough to prevent something to really get explosive out there. And then the shear maintains at 25 to 40 knot range. And then it really picks up by the time we go into the end of next week. That is the first 3 days of October. This shear is pretty dang strong. This is over 50 to 60 knots, possibly even 70 to 80 knots of vertical wind shear over PTC 9 as it moves just to the south of Bermuda. In fact, it is so strong that we actually get frontal futures that develop. So baroclinic interaction here potentially with a frontal system that drapes southward here. And that's the time of the year to start seeing this because we are approaching early to mid-October. The jet stream is getting stronger. The polar vortex is getting stronger. So any of these systems getting into the Gulf, time is ticking away here. Usually by the latter part of October, the Gulf typically begins to shut down for business, and any system that does try to develop usually curves out to sea relatively in lower latitude than what we're seeing right now. Okay. So, with that being said, how strong do I see PTC 9 getting? I know a lot of you are looking at the intensity guidance. Says, David, how are you not seeing this to become a hurricane like the NHC? Of course, I don't like disagreeing with the NHC, but we all have our forecast opinions for many reasons. All right. Sometimes I hype up hurricane seasons and sometimes I don't. And honestly, and I'm being honest, and I want to be transparent with you all, I'm just not enthused about this year's hurricane season. I am just not seeing anything that really blows my mind. Although Aaron and now Humberto, I predicted Humberto becoming a Cat 5, and it looks like that's going to be the case because of how favorable that area is. Okay, so now you might be asking, so what are my opinions? Will potential tropical cyclone 9 become a hurricane? The answer is possible. There's a possibility. Okay. But the dry air is going to become a battle source ground for this system, and it's going to be on a tightrope. It's not like there's an anticyclonic ridge over the system, because I'll tell you what right now, if you think I am playing or I'm downplaying PTC 9, what if there was an anticyclonic ridge on top of this system? Then we would probably be dealing with a Cat 4 or a Cat 5 hurricane potentially in the works over this portion of the Atlantic. So yeah, you should be thankful that I'm not going too crazy on this, because honestly, at the end of the day, we don't want this to become a hurricane. The stronger this becomes, the bigger the impacts are going to be, especially if this actually ends up stalling right off the coast of the Carolinas, and the rain just falls and falls and pours. So my intensity forecast is unchanged from this afternoon, and I am not too confident that this is going to become a hurricane right now, and I'm in the middle of the intensity guidance. I am predicting let me make that clear. I am predicting a 55 to 60 mile an hour tropical storm. So I'm right about actually 50 knots. It's about 50. So I'm more up in here. So more like about a 55 to 60 mile an hour. Actually, maybe about 55 to 60 mile an hour tropical storm is what I am going with right now. Until, again, we get more consistent model data in, I will I'm going to wait for the Euro and to see what my opinion is. But right now, I am kind of laying low on my intensity guidance for right now. And I don't see this becoming a hurricane as of right now. Okay. And who all agrees with me on that? What are your thoughts, Ethan? Do you agree with my intensity forecast? If you actually want to join tonight, I think it's too late for you. No, it's 10:15. I think you can join for a bit. But what are your thoughts, Ethan? Do you agree with my intensity forecast of 55 to 60 miles per hour? Because a lot of people out there do not agree with my intensity forecast. And it has led me to actually have a meltdown tonight and went off on people, which was not a good idea for me to do. But tell ya, sometimes you just got to learn. You got to learn by telling people that I mean business. So 2 months of hurricane season left. A lot can change. I do agree with that. Yes. So, what are your thoughts, Ethan? I want to hear your intensity forecast because I'll tell you right now, folks, we're going to have to wait and see what the Euro shows. But my freaking gosh, that is a lot of dry air. That's a lot of dry air. I mean, if there were no dry air on the southern side of this and it was more kind of like the lighter green colors, I would be like, this can pull something big. This really can. But that dry air right there, it could make things like a tug of war. It tries to intensify, but each time it tries, then you get this dry air being pulled in. Hey, David, I think that's pretty reasonable, although it could get a bit higher if the dry air entrainment isn't as strong. Oh, exactly. Yes. But the vertical wind shear, though, I'm telling you right now, I mean, there's definitely upper level winds cutting across this. You got the trough here. You got another trough right here, negatively tilted, by the way, in the Midwest. That is some good upper level support there for maybe some severe weather in around the deep south in the next few days. But that's going to impart this westerly flow over our system here. So that is why I am very skittish and I'm very, very on edge about this. I really am. Upper level divergent can surprise storms and it doesn't surprise storms, all right? It depends on how much dry air there is actually present. And I am pretty sure based on our satellite imagery here, there is a lot of dry air over there in the deep south, and that is working its way. You could already see on the satellite imagery, all of that dry air is already moving towards the east. And it's going to be here right in the nick of time as this is trying to turn, or as once this actually goes north, this drier air is going to be encroaching onto the backside of the system. I'm going to have to disagree with David a little bit. PTC 9 would be passing over the Gulf Stream, and it could possibly stall over the Gulf Stream. I do agree with you on that too, somewhat. We got to keep in mind, yes, sea surface temperatures are extremely warm. I'm not doubting that at all. Sea surface temperatures in this part of the Atlantic are around 29.5 to 30 Celsius. So water temperatures are extremely, extremely warm. I get that. But we saw this before, you all, okay? Just because we have very warm sea surface temperatures does not mean we are going to get hurricanes. But when we do, we then have to take sea surface temperatures into consideration. The background environment just has not been our friends this year. It just has not. I mean, water temperatures are saying one thing, but the atmosphere is, oh, you guys will learn the hard way that just because warm temperature, or we have very warm sea surface temperatures, yet we can't squeeze out a major hurricane in the Gulf impacting the eastern U.S. And I'll tell you what, right now, I may look disappointed, but I'm not disappointed. I am blessed about that because honestly, we do not need any more damage. We really don't need any more damage. So consider this as, wow, if this misses PTC 9, everybody will be like, that was a close one. And I'll tell you, we've been getting lucky. We've been getting really, really, really lucky. And who knows, will that luck run out with PTC 9 or will that luck stick around a little while longer? That is what we're here for, all right? But right now, good news. Good news in the models tonight. Trends to the south. That's what we've been seeing. And of course, people will disagree with me out there in the weather community that, oh, David's lying, David's underdoing this, underperforming this, or whatever. Okay, I'm looking at model trends, and there has been a very clear distinction. And Ethan could back me up on this. Look at this. This is 4 model runs ago. 4 model runs ago. And look at the trend. Look at the trend. Look at that. Actually, further south. Further south. Boom, 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 boom. Look at that. Nice, good southerly trend here. So we'll see. Does this continue to trend southward? If it does, it turns out and follows with Humberto, and that would be the only way out to prevent any impacts in the United States. But of course, our friends in Bermuda need to still be watching PTC 9 if it does make that turn, because that does get a little close. But also, depending on the timing of this upper level, low level ridge that is in place, that could also impart northerly shear and keep the system at a lower latitude. That's why we have this weird track. The system does this, might do a little loop-de-loop and kind of go out. Some model solutions actually had it doing like that and then going out. So there could be, there will be a big slowdown over here somewhere in the south, along the southeast coast, but how close does that get? Okay, that's the thing, all right? A lot of you don't realize I've been doing this a long time. I've been looking at these models going all the way back to 2017. And if you all don't believe me, ask Ethan B. He's been here for the whole Jolly ride since 2017, since 2018 even. And I mean, people don't like my forecasts, but at the end of the day, someone has to have an opinion. We can't all agree on the same thing, because if we all do, then we all get it wrong. But there's that one person that can get it right. And who knows? Am I right? I could be as wrong as other people out there, you know. We will have to wait and see. But I think the vertical wind shear picking up some marginal upper level divergence over the system will provide assist for some deepening. Okay, I'm not discounting that. Oh, this is not going to become a tropical storm. You all should discount this. You guys need to ignore this. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying that a hurricane here it's low. It's very low. Okay, NHC does have a 75-mile-an-hour peak intensity. All right. Do I agree with them? I do agree with them to some extent, but again, I would not be surprised if they take that off in later updates. All right. And then you guys will be like, what? It's not going to become a hurricane now. Remember, I never called this to become a hurricane in the first place, right? You watched my previous videos. I may have spit it out maybe up to 75, but I've been in that tropical storm range for this whole time, and I'm going to hold down my guard on that right now for the time being. But Humberto, yeah, Humberto's going to be is a whole different story. Humberto, it could become our second Cat 5 hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season. By the way, Ethan, are you available to join the call if you're willing to, just for a little bit? I won't be on for very long. Probably another, let's see, we've been on for 38 minutes. Probably we'll be on until the Euro comes in. By the way, if you all have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It really does help out a lot. It really does. Also, if you would like to support the channel with donations, it would really help out a lot too, you guys. So thank you all for that. Of course, yes, it's been a long, dreadful hurricane season thus far until recently. And that's what we're seeing. So, yeah. So the European model is coming in. Let's look at the Euro. Let's see what it's telling us. And right now, it looks a little bit more stronger and a little bit further to the west. Interesting, the Euro really backed off on... Oh, no, it's about the same. Never mind, it's about the same intensity. So, Ethan, I don't know if you can join... Oh, yeah, he is here. Let's see. What's up, Ethan? How are you doing? Hey, Ethan.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, excellent.
All right. So big changes happened in the last 24 hours, Ethan. When we were talking last night, Humberto was only a 50 or 60 mile an hour tropical storm. Actually, it was it was a hurricane. I believe it was a hurricane, something like that. And now we have a 145 mile an hour hurricane Humberto, on its way of becoming a Cat 5, the second Category 5 hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible, especially over the relatively short amount of time, like you were saying. Quite an organized system we're seeing right here. Very intense eye, and something that, if it does reach that intensity, it's going to be quite a thing.
And yet, how many named storms have we seen this season, Ethan?
Only up to getting ready to get the eye name, maybe.
Yeah. This is a life lesson learned. You don't need 25 or 35 names. Well, not 35, but you don't need 25 or 20 or 30 named storms to get the higher chances of Category 5 hurricanes. You need a season like this that could produce 2 Cat 5 hurricanes. We have had 3 major hurricanes. 3 major hurricanes so far. So, yeah. There's a balance. There is a balance.
Yes, there is. And what we often talk about with quality versus quantity of the season in terms of cyclone intensity, even if it's not a particularly active season, all we have to do is have this one storm hit one location in the US, and it could be a really big disaster. So that's why we always have to keep our eyes open, and we always have to pay attention to what these are doing, even if things are not, purely active at the moment, reading the hurricane numbers. So that's why, like, of course, you're giving all these updates with the tropical cyclones and the hurricane season, and that's why people really need to pay attention, even as we head into October, because even through next month, still not done with hurricane season in its entirety.
No, yeah. We could have 1 or 2 more named storms, but things could get a little bit more hostile thereafter based on MJO forecasts. But let's see here. Let's go to the southeastern United States here because the Euro is coming in right now. And let's see if this has trended weaker. It has trended further south. It has trended further south in the last few model runs. Actually, in the last 5 model runs, it has trended south and more slower. So we might be seeing a new trend here evolve. We'll have to wait and see how this finishes on the Euro. But on this model in particular, no tropical storm here in the next 60 hours on this forecast. 35 to close to 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's not something that we're looking at the moment thinking is going to be a really major hurricane intensity-wise. We're going to be looking at is just how strong it gets and what track it takes. And either way, we're probably going to be looking at some rainfall concerns in the southern Appalachians, the southeast U.S.
Yeah, it's going to really depend on how close that gets, though. The latest NBM forecast, which is what I base most of my rainfall forecasts on. If you look at one particular model, that's pretty foolish, in my opinion, because one model is not something you should rely off of. The super blend NBM, the national blend is what it's called. That's what you should really rely off of because it takes all of the models and averages things out. And so the 03 Zulu national blend here has about 4 to 6 inches of rainfall along the coast here of the Carolinas. When we take a look here at the WPC with their rainfall predictions, again, that 5 to 6 inch range along the Carolina coast with up to about 2 to 4 inches of rain across the Carolinas, as well as If you are in, say, Virginia, the Appalachians could locally get maybe up to about 3 or 4 inches, which is enough to cause a slight risk, even a moderate risk of flooding. But whether or not could it be more significant, that is going to depend on really how close this gets. I mean, if we get a track that goes in like this, it kind of stalls out here and just kind of sits, then more significant rainfall on the order of 10 plus inches would not be entirely surprising in across the central South Carolina, central and southern North Carolina. But it really is going to have to depend on how close, where it stalls, if it stalls, and when it makes that turn, if it does at all. Okay. Very complicated setup here. In fact, Ethan, this is the most complicated setup we have seen in quite some time on a numerical model standpoint.
Yes, indeed. And I'm thinking of all the factors that are going into this because not only do we have these jet stream influences, but we've also got that additional hurricane, the Category 4 right now that we're seeing off to the east of the system. So there's a lot of different sources of force basically that could affect the track of the storm, and that's why there is that lingering degree of uncertainty.
And I wanted to make it clear in this live stream as well is Humberto is still moving west. It is still moving west. It is moving south of where the NHC track has it. Actually, this is the latest. Yeah, it's moving about north or just centerized. I don't know if the image is off a little bit or the track here, but either way, this is generally moving somewhat due west, northwest, and west right now. And so Humberto is going to really, it will have some influence on how much of a tug of war or this gets yanked a little bit. But right now, the latest Euro model only has winds of up to about 45 miles an hour. Okay, 45 miles an hour. Our Canadian model here has winds of about 50 miles an hour. So again, it goes to show you my 55 to 60 mile an hour prediction here is still standing. All right. I know you guys don't like when I'm too generous or conservative, but that's where we stand right now. I don't want to overhype because honestly, at this point, that's pretty foolish when you're dealing with a potentially big flood event over the Carolinas. And of course, I don't want to call out people. I'm not here. Ethan could even cover my back on this one. But there are people out there that tend to say, oh, it's going to become a category 1 hurricane or maybe a category 2 hurricane. We can't jump. We cannot jump that far ahead and say, oh, it is going to become a Cat 2 hurricane. Because what does that cause? That causes panic. And unfortunately, and I'll be honest, people like that in this day and age of world. The world we live in, people like to be panicked because that's entertainment at the end of the day. And that's not what I'm here for. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that I clear things up on that. But nonetheless, this becomes because so the latest model of the Euro has this drifting northward, very slow, but it is south. It is south from where it was, and we have continuously had this trend to the south. So right now, on all of our models that I can think of, there is no landfall along the Carolina coast as it stands. We will wait for this Euro to finish. It should be done relatively soon. And this does not show this making landfall right now. So what the artificial intelligence model has this at, though, the AI-based version. So that actually makes landfall interesting. Its 0Z model has that much further west. So there is one model that still has it making landfall. And that has winds of about 50 miles an hour. 30 on shore here. See how much rainfall that could bring. Yeah, see how bad of a situation that would be? This would be a really bad situation. And actually, Ethan, yeah, you can see this, Ethan, right here along the coast here of, if you're not in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Wilmington. If the artificial intelligence model actually verifies here, 1 to 2 feet of rainfall could accumulate here along the coast of the Carolinas. This would be a catastrophic event.
Yeah, and I'm considering facts like what you've been talking about, the moisture that's around the system. Regardless of exactly how close this gets, we are going to be having some of the tropical moisture advecting from not only this system, but also the one that's off to the east, bringing some pretty anomalous PWatt values. That's precipitable water. Uh, that's how much water would basically fall out if you condensed all of it in the atmosphere onto one particular spot. So the higher that is, the more moisture is available, and we're seeing in the model guidance some of that tropical air getting advected toward the Carolina coast, into the southern Appalachians. And PWatts are running in these models, about 0.7 to maybe an inch above normal. So that, I mean, that would be expected given the tropical air mass. But given the potential slowdown in the motion of the system and the fact that we could have orographic enhancement by the mountains themselves, means that we definitely have a flooding concern. But we are definitely not at this point making some kind of prediction of something like Helene. We're not going to want to say anything like that. And that's, David is taking the responsible approach to this and, not hyping it up like you see so many people on social media do. What we're doing is just kind of taking all the facts into consideration. For instance, he was talking about the dry air. Observed upper air analyses this evening over the southern United States showed some very, very dry air in the southern US. So that is definitely present. That is being observed right now, even. And so that is going to be a factor coming into this. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider. But we're definitely not, counting out flood concerns or wind concerns, whatever it may be, along the South and North Carolina coast, Southern Appalachians, but we're not calling for a mega disaster or anything at this point.
And I'm glad you spoke on that. So there is observed soundings that do show a lot of dry air. So that goes to show you this is reliable data from satellites that show that drier air. So now the Euro came in, all right, and we, again, dry air is an inhibitor, okay, in the tropics. We don't like dry air. If you want to look for a rapidly intensifying system, you got to get rid of the dry air. That's all there is. It's poison to the systems. And I believe in my heart, and I think Ethan believes, not many people out there on social media are seeing this. And that's why some weather enthusiasts out there are saying, oh, this could really intensify at a very rapid rate. It's going little far on that. And so when we take a look here at our air or our moisture at different layers, so this is 700 millibars. This is at 10,000 feet above the surface. So we're looking at different layers like pizza slices. If you break the atmosphere up to different layers, it's what you'll get. And so at 700 millibars, even so, yes, the air is moist here. It is still actually drier over here relative to with what's going on the northern side. More moisture here, a little more moisture here. But we can see that there is this drier air, limited though, with relative humidities around 40 to 50%. That is not full saturation. So that is dry. Then the surrounding air to the north. We look at 500 millibars. Even the air is drier. Look at this. Half of the system here has really dry air, drier here than it is on the northeastern and the eastern and the northern quadrants. Like this purple up here, this is full saturation. The air is fully condensed. You're getting a lot of rain, a lot of cloud cover at 500 millibars. But this brown here at 500 millibars, that's 18,000 feet above the surface. That's the drier air that is being pumped in from the west, and that vertical wind shear is going to help shove that drier air in. Okay, so it's not just about the dry air destroying the system potentially a little bit, but also the vertical wind shear helping that out a little bit. 300 millibars, the air's even drier. Look at this. I mean, this is really, really dry, Ethan. In fact, look at maybe even a little bit of a steam jet up here at this level with relative humidities as low as 1 or 2%, right over the edge of this circulation. You there?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You cut out there for a second.
All right. Sorry about that. So yeah, the air, Ethan,
You're
on
fine.
this, right over the circulation and just to the west, as low as 1 or 2%.
Oh, yeah, so that's in very dry air. And one of the charts I was looking at earlier, upper observation at 0Z this evening, for the south central US, 500 millibars, the dew point was in the negative upper 40s to negative 50 Celsius range. Very dry.
Man, that's crazy. So that is why I'm the one being the down player here in all of this. And you again, Ethan could actually speak on the behalf on this with me. Um, so Ethan, might be downplaying this a little bit, but that's perfectly fine in some instances, correct? Hello?
Uh, I'm sorry, if you were asking me a question, you cut out again just for a minute.
Maybe it's your internet. So what I was saying is, I might be downplaying the system a little bit, but there's a good reasoning for that. Like other people aren't. I can tell you that right now. Other people are going a little aggressive on this.
Right, and that's unfortunately to be expected in the modern environment of, online forecasting and, you know, people who may not have the experience or the qualification to be saying things like this. Yeah, the thing with forecasting is you got to take everything into consideration. The things which could amplify the storm and the things which could weaken the storm. And that's what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm. So now, with that being said, let's take a look at our European model. All right, let's look at the rest of the forecast here. So yes, it stalls out here for a full day. It just sits there and sits there and sits there. And we have maximum winds that peak at around about 60 miles an hour, about 55 to 60 ish, maybe 65 miles an hour at the tops. But yeah, you don't see a hurricane here on the Euro model, and it has been weakening in each of the model guidance here. You can see this model was a little weaker. Actually, it's been pretty consistent overall. This one was a little bit more intense right before landfall, showing up to 70 miles an hour. But the Euro has been really consistent here at showing winds only maxing out at around 60 miles an hour before the system actually moves off towards the east. You can clearly see that right there. Like all the other models are doing, they're hitting this wall and then boom, it shoots off to the east there. But that stall is going to be very important. If this stalls over land, all bets are off for catastrophic flooding potentially over the Carolina coast. We actually look at our rainfall forecast here on this model. Yeah, look how much rainfall the Euro is predicting over that one area, Ethan. 30 to 40 inches off the coast of the Carolinas.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's something we have to watch. I mean, the flooding concerns, and someone in the chat here mentioned it a little bit ago, even weaker tropical cyclones, like tropical storms, for instance, can produce some really dangerous flooding concerns depending on, how much rain they have, how fast they move, things like that. So the flooding concern, definitely something you're going to want to watch if you're in the Carolinas or the Southern Appalachians. We really got to watch this.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if there is an inner core that does try to develop there, rainfall rates in this system, Ethan, could exceed 3 inches an hour.
Oh, that is quite tropical.
Oh, that is crazy. In fact, P watt values, let's look at the P watts. Ah, that's why. You want to know what the PWatt values are, Ethan, if an inner core is able to actually get established? You want to know?
Yes, I do.
3.75 to 4.25 inches of PWatts.
Oh my. Wow. That is a lot of water vapor in the air.
Yeah. In fact, that is so much water vapor in the air that it is actually about 6 times the standard deviation. So basically 6 times above climatology.
Yeah, I mean, that is a highly anomalous situation, and that air advecting inland is what we're concerned about, potential for either rain bands stalling out or orographic enhancement of precipitation.
Yeah. So I mean, if this, it at this point, you guys, I would rarely say this on stream. I don't care about the intensity of this system. I really don't care about how strong this gets unless it really does become a Cat 2 or a Cat 3 hurricane, which again, I don't forecast. I'm not predicting that right now. But don't worry as much about the intensity as the rainfall with this, because if this does stall out somewhere along the coast here of the Carolinas, if and if and if, and a super if it does, the flooding could be on steroids here along the Carolina coast of Myrtle Beach across Wilmington, North Carolina. This would be a historic event, unprecedented event for this area should this stall in the wrong spot. So we really, really got to watch this. Again, I don't care about the wind with this. The wind does not mean anything with this system. What really means a lot is how much rainfall will actually accumulate. Because really, at the end of the day, your wind gusts between 20 to 30 miles an hour over the Carolinas, that might disrupt power briefly, but we're not talking about a Cat 4 or a Cat 5 hurricane making landfall. We're not seeing anything that, oh, it's going to do this, or it's coming from like where Humberto is and it's going to go like this. No, we're seeing a system that stalls here and then kind of shoots off to the east like that. So therefore, in my own opinion, I'm still holding my guard down with the 55 to 60 mile an hour intensity on this hurricane or tropical storm. Excuse me there with my words. Okay. Yes, I may be downplaying this for right now because of the vertical wind shear that we talked about, right? And the dry air that me and Ethan were talking about. Okay. Dry air and shear do not mix with a tropical system. Even so that, oh, there's upper level divergence, David. Well, if the upper level divergence is really only into one sector of the storm, so if you get upper level flow that does this, the system's not going to thrive well. It is going to strengthen. That's what I believe it's going to do. We're going to see this get named. No matter what, it's more than likely going to get named Imelda. But whether or not, will it become a 75 mile an hour hurricane? We don't know. We don't know. All right. But in general, most of the model guidance. So if we look at the Euro at 86 hours out, 54 mile an hour system. Let's look at the GFS. The GFS, very bullish. Really, really bullish. We'll see if that actually comes to pass. That's a 74 mile an hour hurricane. All right, in 86 hours. Let's look at the Canadian. Canadian, 54 miles an hour. Icon model. Icon down here, 73 miles an hour, but much further south. Okay, so there it's a 50-50 win. But the APHIS model, 50 miles an hour. So the average here is, I'm going to weight that. I'm going to put a 55 to 60 mile an hour system on this. And if you guys, some of you don't have to agree with me, but it's my opinion. And sometimes you can't overhype stuff unless you really know for sure it is going to become a monster. All right. Ian was different. Helene was different. Debbie was different. Milton was different. Actually, no one saw Milton becoming a Cat 5. I don't even think I saw Milton becoming a Cat 5 because that thing really threw us surprises. But what I did see was Humberto becoming a Cat 5. Looks more likely that it's going to happen because of how fast it has intensified already. And the Euro model is still hanging on to that gut right now that Humberto does become our next monster out there. Well, it already is a monster, but it's only going to get worse from here, unfortunately. Looks like it's going to be strongest right about in here, though, where it peaks intensity here of about 130 miles an hour in 65 hours. And the pressure on that is down to 950 millibars, which I think it's going to be a lot lower than that. So, yes, I do very much agree that the Euro is definitely onto the system. And I will tell you right now, it's a good thing that Humberto was not going to impact Bermuda directly, because look at those wind gusts that the Euro is sniffing out, Ethan. By the way, and you guys can see this too on the stream, peaking wind gusts of 170 to 185 miles an hour on the Euro, Ethan.
Oh, wow. Now that is bad. I'm glad that's not coming toward the US coast.
Yeah, I'm very glad. Oh, I'm glad. Because that's devastating right there. In fact, tropical storm force winds could theoretically hit Bermuda. I mean, Bermuda's not in the clear from this monster. I mean, the inner core doesn't hit Bermuda, but look at these winds at the surface. That is almost hurricane force, with hurricane force wind gusts potentially there. So yes, Bermuda is gonna get in a little bit of trouble from that system. Yeah. Let's look at the wave heights. I'm very curious of how large the waves can get with that. Significant wave height. Yeah, Bermuda could get significant waves up to 30 feet. 30 feet with that.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Now
so
that's another impact. I mean, if you're around there, that is going to be some pretty dangerous surf.
exactly. Also, I wanted to mention too, okay. So yes, the wind is one thing, the flooding is one thing also, but what you didn't realize is the surf as well. Look at the surf along the coast here of the Carolinas, potentially some breakers exceeding 10 to 15 feet perhaps. All right, you can even see some darker red here. That is wave heights of 25 to almost 30 feet. That is significant wave height. So yeah, that is a pretty windy storm, if you ask me. That generates a lot of surf here. So yeah, big time waves, coastal flooding potentially is going to be a thing, along to go with some freshwater flooding. I mean, like I said, the wind is one of many impacts that a system brings, and we have to realize those impacts. So yes, indirect impacts, you don't need a landfall, and you will learn it pretty hard, like I do, that it takes only one system, and it does not take a landfall to cause the most problems. Okay. So, yeah. Right now, when we do take a look at Humberto here really quickly, before we get to questions, system is pretty intense, but it is definitely asymmetrical. So it is not really... It looks still definitely like a category 4, but does not look any stronger than it did earlier on the satellite imagery, which is good news. Because, man, we have a Cat 5 hurricane, another one. That's the second one of the season. Also, changing the subject here really quickly. I know this is kind of off topic. But it is a special announcement that I wanted to tell you all about here on the stream since we're live. I want to proudly announce right here. I want to proudly announce my latest winter forecast, or not winter forecast, excuse me. My latest snow forecast has reached 200,000 views, you all. So I want to thank you all for sharing this, for getting it out there, because I will tell you what, as simple as that map looked when you guys watched it, that took me a week to work on it. And I'm already pushing out another snowfall map forecast for you all that's much more detailed. It's much more fixed up, more fine-tuned. Oh, you guys have not seen a snow map on YouTube as detailed as what you're about to see. Once that comes out in late October, it's going to take me at least 2 or 3 weeks to actually work on, and everything. So yeah, just to make one layer, it takes about 2 hours just to make one layer, because you have to literally zoom way in and like figure out that, oh, this area is going to see this much, you know. It is a long process. I mean, yeah.
I can certainly attest to that. David puts a great amount of work into it.
Actually, Ethan, I will show you this personally. I won't show the stream this because I don't want to really give it away. Actually, I can kind of spoil it for you guys because I'm just working on it really quickly here. This is what I've gotten so far right now. If we zoom in here to a location, look how detailed that is. Literally, look how detailed that is. That is like finite detail.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Way more detailed than my previous one.
That's pretty insane.
So if I had more time before, with my last one, I would have put a little more detail into it, but I was kind of running behind, so I was like, I'll just throw that out there. But this one, I'm putting a lot more time in, and I'm looking into doing an Alaska snow forecast as well. I will have to see if I can find the data for that and the forecast models for that area for this winter. But yeah, so far this is what I got, and there is a lot more work to be put into this. So this is basically what I have. And I even added a bonus to this as well. So the gray shading that you have there, that's who might see a 1/2 inch of snow, at least a half, 0.5 inches of snow there. And maybe I'll even surprise you guys a little bit more. Maybe who will see a 1/10 of an inch of snow, which is even littler than that. And so, and this will go all the way up to 15, maybe even 20 feet. I'll have to make a new color scale for that, because I got the 15 feet worked on already, but I'll have to extend things a little bit and make a 20 feet contour. But that's what I got so far, and there is a lot more work to do. I am stressing my butt off on it. I really am, because one layer just to paint, okay, just to mark off, it takes at least an hour, even an hour and a half, just to do one layer at a time, even 2 hours at most, if I really want to get detail. And if I really wanted to, I can take 4 hours on a layer, make it as high resolution as you can possibly get. So yeah, it's going to be at least 4K imagery of a snow map. The updated version, which is proposed to release by the last week of October. So that would probably be, let's see, when that would actually come out. So here's October. There's September. Okay. So yeah, it'd probably be the 27th. Depends on how much I can get done. If I can get it done sooner, it'll be out sooner. But I am shooting for the last full week of October. If not, the week of the 26th through the 31st, something like in that ballpark. Because again, it's going to take me a long time, and I have work over the next 4 days, so that's going to delay things a little bit. But that's probably why I might not upload on YouTube every single day, and that's because I'm working on that. Because at least my goal is to get at least 2 or 3 layers done a day. So that's about 2, 4, 6, 8, up to maybe 3 or 4 layers done. That's like an 8-hour workday, getting just 4 layers done, and there's like 10 plus layers to do. So, yeah. And because of how high the demand is, I saw a lot of the comments. A lot of you guys were like, man, this is one of the best snow maps I can find on YouTube. And even someone asked me, can you do one for Canada and for also for Alaska? For some reason, I cannot get a Canadian map. I could not find one, so I don't think I will be able to do Canada. I'm going to see if I can do Alaska, though. And that's still in the works right now. But the first thing I wanted to get out is the updated snowfall map for the United States, and then I will work on the Alaska version once I'm done with the United States version. And I'm also looking into making an average snowfall climatology map as well. But again, that's more resources that I'm going to have to dig in. This is not easy, folks. This is not easy. I will ask you all, try drawing a map for me in Photoshop, and you'll be like, David, no, I don't know how to use Photoshop. And I'll be like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You know how to use Photoshop. I mean, it's not easy. It really isn't. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And Ethan, you've seen me do 1 layer, huh?
Yeah, the amount of, detail that you have to put into it, just the dedication it takes to do that, that would drive me nuts, personally.
Yeah. Well, Ethan, the GFS is out and you will literally laugh. You want to see it?
Yes, I do.
You all get ready to laugh, okay? The GFS is a joke. Actually, let me play this through. So there's our system right there. Oh, hold on a second. Let me play this through. And let me turn off this. I'm going to try to follow this. Look at that track on the GFS, Ethan. Look how wild that is.
That is absolutely nuts. What in the world? Oh, wow.
Oh my
That looks like
gosh.
the It looks like the Bennington, Kansas tornado from 2013 or something.
Oh my gosh, GFS. Oh my gosh, GFS. I love you, sweetheart. I love you. Tell you, sometimes I just want to show the viewers the whole entire 384 hours of a forecast, but that's when the hype squad comes in, and I don't want to hype up stuff. Because I'll tell you, I have seen all too weird of tracks this year. I mean, I just like how it plays with these systems. It'll turn north and it'll kind of do a zigzag and they'll kind of come around and it'll go like out like that. It's just insane. It's just insane.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I guess that's the GFS indicating that it's not going to immediately get pulled by a by a trough coming in from the jet stream, because the trough is still, or the jet stream, I should say, is still pretty anomalously high in latitude for the time of year. Uh, but that right there is just a weird run.
Yeah, and when we look at the 18Z run, where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, it's not even there. It's not even. And then, boop, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy games. Yes, exactly, right? All right, any questions anybody has? Any questions? Because I gotta get up in about 5:30 in the morning.
Ooh, that's early.
Yeah, early. So I better get some sleep. And then I have a party to go to at like 11 in the morning, and that's not done until 4 in the afternoon. And then I got to come home and probably go live if necessary on YouTube. Because of this whole PTC 9, I actually will go live more than likely on it. So I am not going to get a whole lot of sleep till tomorrow late night. Check the H-Warp model. Oh, I just realized I need to check our Hurricane models. What does it say? Oh my gosh, Ethan. You would not believe what the H-Warp shows.
Something ridiculous?
Something very concerning. So it has the system stalling out in South Carolina for about a day and a half to 2 days.
Oh, yeah, that would not be good.
Holy cow. It stalls. It just sits there. Oh my gosh, this would be bad. That would be pretty devastating. Pretty devastating. And based on the looks of that right there, based on that heavy rainfall, there could be a couple of feet of rainfall with that. That actually stalls. But this shows winds maxing out at about 50 to 55 knots. So not a hurricane on this run. Let's see what the wharf. Oh no, wait, the HMON. See, that is coming in. So our hurricane models, the 0Z models, like the idea that it is going to stall out somewhere in along the Georgia coast of Savannah or down there in Myrtle Beach. Is just going to sit there. Man, it just, oh gosh. You there, Ethan?
I'm here. You got me?
Yeah. So the HMON and the H-Wharf both have the system stalling out over land.
I mean, that is a possibility, and there's factors that go into that. Even if this is a weak system, like David's saying, even if it doesn't get up to like a Cat 2 or a Cat 3, for instance, it's still going to be pumping in a lot of tropical air inland over toward the Carolina coast into the southern Appalachians. So we're still going to have that. And we do have the possibility of this slowing down as it approaches land because the jet stream isn't particularly active. There's not really a whole lot of steering going on at this point. So there's nothing to really push it out of the way as much. So that is a possibility, and that's why, in particular, I think there's a lot of focus, rightly so, on the hydrologic impacts this is going to have.
Yeah. The only good news is on all three of the hurricane models. I'm going to check the halves B. No hurricane. I am not seeing any purple at all. Maybe a little blip there, but that's like a wind gust. But overall, under hurricane intensity here on the 3 models that I can see, but my freaking gosh. Okay, the halves A has this stalling out literally a mile or 2 off the coast of Georgia. The halves B is a little further offshore, but it parallels along the coast and it just wobbles and just kind of sits there. and that would bring a lot of rainfall. So, man, this is really close. This is a close call still. No hurricane on all 4 of the models, though. I am not seeing any indications that this would become a hurricane on any of the hurricane models right now, with a maximum intensity of about 55 to 60 miles an hour. Maybe even 65 at the most. So, good news in that sense that wind impacts are a bit mitigated. But the bad news is still a huge flood disaster waiting to happen there along the Carolina coast. See what our NAM 12 kilometer shows. Yeah, that gets really close. And that does show winds peaking at around 55 to 60 miles an hour. But yeah, Ethan, anything along the track of this, rainfall amounts over 24 inches.
Yeah, that is, I'd say, probably the main concern at this point, beyond any tornadoes or wind problems. I mean, we're going to have some storm surge problems, perhaps. Maybe not to the degree of, having a widespread inundation event. I mean, we're going to have some minor surge probably, because this is going to be bringing some onshore flow. But at this point, yes, I mean, the rainfall threat is something we're really going to be watching. As, again, we're not hyping this into a major disaster or anything just yet. We're not going to make comparisons to Helene or anything. Helene was like a once in a thousand year event. But thing is, this is going to be a pretty heavy rain producer, and if it does stall out, as David has been mentioning, that is really going to lead to an elevated flooding concern, including for some locations, unfortunately, that perhaps that had been impacted by Helene to some extent last year. So something we really want to watch and take seriously. So I think that's a big takeaway from this. What David's been saying, don't focus necessarily on just how strong the hurricane or tropical storm gets on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Focus on the rainfall totals and how that might affect your local area, because that might be the biggest impacts this has.
Yeah. All right. Any questions, anybody? But the question remains: how will Humberto affect the path of Imelda, and will Imelda make landfall? Yeah, again, that's a question that I cannot fully answer. There's a split way tie. Most of our hurricane models have this still making landfall in the Georgia, South Carolina coast in about 5 days, whereas all of our global models are like, nope, I am not believing the hurricane models with what they say. I'm just going to ignore them. That's where we're at. Pretty much all of our hurricane models, except for the APHIS model, literally turning this out to sea, and our hurricane models bringing this on shore. That is why I am not going over the top with this. I am not going over the top with this. And I honestly, I'm not trying to laugh here, but I don't care if people say I'm underhyping this. Honestly, the NHC doesn't hype this up either, unless it's a good reason to do so. So I am going to be conservative for many reasons, especially since my channel has almost 55,000 subscribers. Actually, we are 100 subscribers, or a little more than 100 subscribers from 55,000. So, of course, I am not going to be hyping things up because, of course, when you're a small YouTuber, you don't have a big following, so you can't hype up stuff because you're not going to expect a lot of people watching your videos, right? Because you're a smaller YouTuber. But when you're really big like me, you got to consider that, oh, wow, there could be 60 or 70,000 people watching this video or live stream. And if they hear that, oh, David isn't really hyping this up very much, people are eventually going to gravitate to me because it's like, wow, David's the only one that doesn't hype up stuff in the weather community. Of course, once in a blue moon, I will when it needs to be. Like if Humberto was going to impact the United States, I think Ethan would probably provoke me to hype stuff up a little bit. because that's a Cat 4 hurricane versus a 35-mile-an-hour system that brings maybe up to 4 or 5 inches of rain, you know? So, again, I don't want to get the ego in the way of me. That's not what I'm trying to do here. You know, like the National Hurricane Center, why are they conservative? Well, Ethan could probably answer this one for me, because there is, well, over 400 million people that look at the National Hurricane Center website. 400 million, well, actually even more than that perhaps, because of some international people like, you know, in China, in Korea, or whoever, where they live, you know. So you would be expecting at least 1 billion people visiting the National Hurricane Center at least in a day, if not more, versus, you know, a YouTuber or YouTubers that are much smaller. So you can tell how the size correlates with that. But because I've grown, this channel has exploded in the last month. I mean, it's been incredible. Now I have to be like, gotta watch what I say. Gotta really be conservative, you know? You might not agree with me, but at the end of the day, someone's going to be right at the end, you know? Just found your channel, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate you finding me. And I'm sure you subscribed because you now became a member of the channel. Thank you for becoming a tropical storm. Tropical storm. I appreciate that. By the way, I ordered a GoPro. The GoPro Hero 13, and I'm going to be doing some time lapsing, but we'll decide if I want to start a new channel on that and have it early access to members only for that content. So deciding on that, because I want to do something special for my members. I can't leave you guys in the dark wondering, I subscribed and I'm following this guy, paying money, and he's not giving me anything. So I have to do something special for you guys, because you guys deserve it. You guys deserve it. Thank you for subscribing, Brooke. Will you be my 55th thousand subscriber? Oh, no way. Yeah, we're 140 subs away from that. So, man, almost 60,000. Could be at that at the end of the year. To be quite honest, we'll see about that. The way it looks right now with my snow forecast, holy cow. That thing's blown up in the last 8 days. And if you guys go check that out, folks, after the live stream, that snow forecast is only going to get better by the end of October when I do my updated 4 to 6K quality imagery. Now, I will give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. The snow forecast map that I make is based on the last 2 years of snowfall data. All right, I wanted to make that clear. I don't want you guys to be like, oh, how do you know we're going to get 15 feet of snow? Okay, Great Lakes region is notorious of significant snowfall totals. All right, I can't be exactly accurate. Okay, Ethan could even tell you that. Weather is so complicated that predicting what's going to happen over the course of 6 to 7 months, 8 months, 9 months is pretty complicated. Okay. And so I try my best at making these maps as accurate as I can based on the last 2 years of average snowfall data relative to climatology and other factors and what I think is going to happen this year. So it all is hand in hand. Different variables come together to make these maps. So, of course, it may not be accurate for your exact location, and that's sometimes fine. I can't be 100 billion% accurate. I wish I could be a sidekick over here and would know everything about, oh, I know how much feet of snowfall you're going to get between this day and this day. I wish I knew the answer, but I don't. I don't. I try my best. However, though, in general, okay, here's a little life lesson learned, and I wanted to kind of show you all this. on the United States map here on Radar Omega. So in general, okay, and some of you were that if you guys did see my snowfall map, I might have been aggressive. Downwind of most of these Great Lakes, you're gonna get the most snow. All right, like over here, sometimes even over here, you're gonna get the most snow. And of course, this is in Canada. The paint won't work over there. So you get the wind generally over this part, okay, over these Great Lakes. And so you'll end up getting the most snow downwind. That is why I forecast up to 15 feet this year. That's not based on last year's snowfall data, but that's what I think might happen because, well, in turn, if you get a much colder Arctic air mass, more Arctic outbreaks this season, that's what I'm forecasting. The ending result is going to be more potential for lake effect snow events. All right. I mean, I know 15 feet is a lot, but I mean, that is possible, right, Ethan? Is it possible to get 15 feet of snowfall in a season downwind of the Great Lakes, like Lake Ontario, Lake Erie?
Yeah, that is possible. There's often these enhanced corridors where the mean wind lines up, especially if it's aligned with the lake fetch, which we see for like locations like Buffalo, New York, for instance. Some of these places can see over 200 inches of snow in a given season, and that's just the average. And some places it's even more than that. So it is entirely possible.
You heard it from the expert, right? And the reason why that is something you might have not known and like, ooh, I never knew that. Yeah, here comes climatology for y'all, okay? Sometimes when you get these westerly winds that come across like this, all right, behind a cold front, sometimes what we called hyperconvergence, okay? So actually what ends up happening is because the land is colder than the waters, right? It's all about thermodynamics. I know we're jumping off the tropics here really quick. What takes into consideration with my snowfall forecast, okay, why I put what I put, is because during the winter season, sometimes the land cools off, especially at night. It's colder, right? So your winds are actually going to do this, okay? Remember, land cools off faster than water does. So the air is denser. Denser air wants to move to less dense air. So then the wind of the air over the Great Lakes is warmer, less dense, wants to rise. So you get confluence. The same thing happens on this side of the Great Lakes, okay? You get this convergence that ends up happening. So you end up seeing a very, very intense lake effect enhanced snow band that sets up right here. Same principle even happens over here, but just not as prevalent because of the shape of Lake Ontario. Oh, wait. Yeah, I need to know my lakes a little bit better. Okay, Lake Erie. Yeah, this Lake Ontario. So the shape of the lake matters a whole lot here. You're more likely to get more snow over here than more likely over here, but both could see, of course, up to 10 or 15 feet of snowfall. All right. And of course, you get enhancement due to some topography changes as well. That squeezes out moisture too. So you have to consider that. You really, really do. Okay. Because at night, the winds converge over the lake because the lake is warmer than the land is, especially during Arctic outbreaks. Okay. I try to be as accurate as I can, and sometimes I go a little aggressive because that's what my hunch tells me that, okay, you should put 15 feet over here. I'm confident this year there's be 15 feet of snowfall. All right. The mountains as well. Some of these higher peaks here tend to get 15 feet of snowfall. The Olympic Mountains here of Washington, the Cascades, these tall mountains tend to get 15 plus feet of snowfall. Sierra, even the higher elevations tend to get 10 to 15 feet. So you got to understand, higher elevations are always going to get more snow than other locations because, well, they're exposed to the elements. They're exposed to the jet stream, the moisture transport, right? Orographic lift. Orographic lift is air that goes up and over a mountainside, and as it goes up, it squeezes that moisture out, because at the end of the day, the atmosphere always has water in it. You don't see water because it's so light and it's not condensing. But there is water floating around in this room right now, breathing in water. It's called water vapor. We got an unexpected lake effect snow lesson. Yes, we did, Ethan. We really did. So that is what's being computed. I'm not like a model or anything, but that's modelized in my snow forecast. That is taken into considerable consideration with the past 2 to 3 years of historic snowfall data on average, on top of climatological averages, what I'm thinking what this winter is going to bring. There's all factors. That is why on that snow map that you guys looked at, I'm not forecasting any snow in Louisiana. Even so, last year, there was a snowstorm that impacted New Orleans, Louisiana, because I know in my mind that that was historic. That doesn't happen every year. So just because you got snow last year doesn't mean you'll get, oh, we should get ready for snow this winter too. It's once in a blue moon. The further south you go, the further north you go, you tend to get more snow because, well, it's colder and it stays cold, so that snow doesn't melt. Now, really quickly, some of you might be asking, but David, it melts and stuff throughout the season. How do I know if I got that much snow? Well, you will have to melt it down. So, see, it doesn't snow where I live, so I don't know how to measure snow like you guys might. But generally, you'll get a snow gauge, collect all that snow, melt it down, okay, and then put the snow gauge out again and keep the water in it, and then melt it down once it gets full enough, and then that's your water equivalent. And then you do some mathematical equations with how much water you got in QPF, and then that's your rough estimate of how much snowfall you got. Or you can use simple maps like I do that give me the snowfall for the season, how much snow fell from October 1st through May 1st. Okay, that is what we call the interseasonal water year. So there is what we call the FISCO water year that runs from October 1st through September 30th. But then there is the interseasonal water year, which runs from October 1st through May 1st. I'm using the interseasonal water year, which runs from October 1st through May 1st. That's what I'm taking into consideration. Even so, snow may fall outside of that, which can happen. I don't take that into consideration with my snow forecast amounts. So remember that, I watched the video and I'm getting 15 feet of snowfall where I'm at. That doesn't happen with one snowstorm, because I did see people leave comments that, oh my gosh, David, are you predicting 15 feet of snowfall literally in my area? Yes, but over the course of the freaking fall, winter, and spring. Okay, again, I want to make it clear, October 1st of this year through May 1st of next year. And Ethan could really iterate on that, right, Ethan?
Yeah, it's a seasonal forecast, so it's going to be covering a broad range. What David is saying there is that any one location, the snowfall total for any one location is going to vary based on the forecast. The best that we can do is to give, kind of an expected range at this point in the year. That's just how forecasting works. But that total is going to be the sum of all of the storms that you have during the entire season. It's not all going to be at the same time.
Because I'll tell you, you get 15 feet of snowfall in a couple of days. Ethan would be saying, holy cow, oh my gosh, that is historic, dude. That is historic. I mean, I don't want to be inappropriate in my live stream, but I would pee my pants if I heard a location getting 15 feet of snowfall in a 24 to 36 hour period. It would be gangbusters. That is not, it is possible. Anything is possible in this world. I mean, weather could surprise us, but I mean, getting 15 feet of snowfall in a couple of days is Snowmageddon, wild, very rare and historic by all means. So, yeah, you're not getting 15 feet of snowfall in a couple of days. But you depending on, again, downwind of the Lake Erie, Lake Ontario area, 15 feet of snowfall in a 7 to 8 month period is more realistic. Okay. And again, my forecasts are not 100% perfect. No one is. No one's actually is, because we don't know what the atmosphere will do in 4 or 5 months. Why do we do it in the first place? Because it's always fun to get your prediction out there and see if it verifies, you know? That's the whole purpose of it. That's why direct weather does it. That's why max velocity does it. That's why Ryan Hall does it. That's why Mitch does it. Who else did I miss? That is why I forgot. That's why Weather on the Go does it. I mean, there are 10 or 15 YouTubers that make seasonal forecasts, and we all have our different opinion. So, but yeah, back to the tropics here really quickly. Oh my gosh, it's almost midnight. I got to get to bed here in a little bit, but here is what Humberto looks like. Look how cool looking and handsome he actually looks. Really handsome looking. That eye looks like it has warmed up a little bit more. It's a little bit more handsome. So yeah, definitely showing signs there. It looks a little asymmetrical, but we know that's not going to last a whole lot longer. And look at that. Just look at that. That monster turn up over there. Is Humberto trying to shift to the east? It's wobbling all around, but it looks like it's now just to it's right on the northern edge of the NHC guidance envelope right now. So that doesn't mean it's going to continue that way. This has been wobbling erratically over the last 6 to 12 hours. So this can go, it can go over here. It's been all over. So I cannot say for sure if this is already turning to the right. It could wobble all over. But in general, I do not see this going towards the United States, which is a good thing because this thing is about to become our next Category 5 hurricane potentially. How long have I been streaming? For almost 2 hours. But I think I'm going to head to bed here because I have to be up at 5:30 in the morning for work. I'm only working 4 hours, so that's nice. I'm off at 10:30 in the morning my time. But then I have a party to go to right afterwards. So I've got family obligations to do before I make a return on my channel tomorrow afternoon for a live stream. I don't think I'll do a video tomorrow just because I won't be home until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And that will take a process to do so. Instead, I'll be just doing a video, live stream for a couple of hours for you all. Actually, today, for the people that live in the East Coast, it is 2:35 in the morning. Thankfully, I'll still be in bed at that time because I don't want to be tired for work. But since it's 4 hours, I'll make it a great day, you know. But yeah, a lot to track in the tropics. We got Humberto that's threatening a Cat 5. And then, of course, we talked about how strong 9 is going to get, in my opinion. I'm a little bit lower than the National Hurricane Centers, but not a whole lot. I do see this becoming a tropical storm without a doubt. I think Ethan could agree with me on that. But whether or not, will this make a run for a Category 1 hurricane with winds up to 75 miles an hour? We do not know 100% for a fact that's actually going to happen, okay? There's a lot of uncertainties that we did talk about. Dry air and vertical wind shear. There's going to be limits to this, all right? And people are going to say otherwise. But sea surface temperatures are very, very warm, David. They're very, very warm. yeah, I don't care how warm the sea surface temperatures are because I'm looking at the atmosphere before anything. If things are not going to line up in the sea surface temperature's favor, we're not going to see a major hurricanal event, you know? Maybe things will change with a surprise, but right now as it stands, doesn't look too promising that we're going to see a 75-mile-an-hour system. Things go uptrend a little bit or downtrend, but until I see more consistent model trends that suggest that this might actually make a run for a Category 1, we will cross that bridge when we arrive to it. But right now, I'm staying pretty generous at the 55 to 60-mile-an-hour mark with my intensity predictions, which may be a little low for right now, but I'm being conservative at the moment. All right. So, I think I'm going to head off. I think it's time for me to get to bed. By the way, watch my winter or snow forecast and my winter forecast. And I'm going to have to see if I can get 2 of those out. I just realized I might do an updated winter forecast, a snow forecast in 4 to 6K quality, and an Alaska snow forecast. Man, I sure hope the tropics get quiet after this point forward, because I am going to be doing a lot of graphic designing on my snow maps. But as always, have a great rest of your guys' night. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All right, please subscribe, folks. It really helps out a lot because boy, oh boy, we are getting closer and closer to 60,000 subscribers on this channel. And I think we'll get there. At this rate, we can get there by the end of next month. Perhaps we shall see. But otherwise, thank you all for watching. Love you guys a lot. And I'll be back with you more later on today with a live stream discussion on both PTC 9 and Major Hurricane Humberto, which is spinning about out there in the tropical Atlantic. As always, have a great night.